This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everybody. Jordan Girth here from the National Weather Service Office of Observations. Thank you so much for joining us for the Satellite Book Club seminar series. This is session number 184. The title of today's presentation is NOAA's Low Earth Orbiting Office's Products Always Under Development. Stakeholder fingerprints are everywhere. I'm glad to have Bill Sjoberg, a longtime colleague from NOAA's LEO program office, with us today, and Chris White, the Applications Integration Meteorologist at the National Weather Service Forecast Office in Huntsville, Alabama, to facilitate the discussion following Bill's presentation. Just a few reminders. As always, this session is being recorded and there's an opportunity for Q&A after the presentation. If you have not signed in with your full name, please note your full name when asking a question in the chat, and that's where we encourage them and we will field them in the order they are asked. We are looking for future presenters. Please contact our Tower S team, Kushad Bowman and Emily Maddox, if you are interested in being a part of this series. And the training team can help create training materials that may be unavailable or point you to materials you may be unaware of. Ross Van Til at the Office of the Chief Learning Officer can help with that. I'd just like to thank our Tower S team, Kushad and Emily, the Office of the Chief Learning Officer, the GOZAR JPSS programs, our facilitator, presenter, and all of you for being with us today. Well, let's dive right into it. Bill Sjoberg spent 23 years with the U.S. Air Force, with one of his assignments managing the U.S. Air Force Direct Broadcast Antennas. After retiring in 2000, Bill supported NOAA's Low Earth Orbiting program, both on the program staff and during his 6 years on the NWS staff, being on both the user and programmatic satellite staff. He is uniquely qualified to maintain a collaborative environment. Bill, welcome to the Satellite Book Club.
So let me get started. So I wanted to give a little short tutorial on Bill Sjoberg and satellites, okay? So when I was in the U.S. Air Force, not only was I using the direct broadcast antenna in Lajes and the Azores, getting DMSP low Earth orbiting images out in the middle of the Atlantic. If anybody knows where the Azores are, that's where I was. But also a later assignment in the Air Force, my last assignment on the air staff, I was working the DoD participation in the NPOS program. How about that? So when I retired, I actually jumped over to the NPOS program, and I helped author the IORD-2, the requirements document for the low Earth orbiting satellite program. And so I was a user for many years. Then I was on the NPOS, now JPSS, now LEO staff, LEO office staff. And I was even at the National Weather Service for a few years. So I was always working issues with satellites, their value, why they're important. Chris White and I were talking a little bit before the meeting here about some of the things that we were working on together and separately. So the value, the operational value of these satellites are very, very important to document and to communicate to the people who are paying the bills. So this is a particular something of real interest to me and something that I've been doing for a number of years. So, and as I did that, I wondered, how do these satellites ever get launched and how do they ever work? Because if you look at whether it's a GEO or a LEO, whether it's US or foreign satellites, what they initially promise isn't what they often are able to deliver. Cost, schedule problems come up. As you test some of the instruments, things go wrong, and it's a wonder that anything ever gets launched and ever works. But the other thing that I learned is when it's launched and when the data comes down and the products come down, and when the users find them valuable, they tend to forget all the problems it took to get them there. And not only that, but they come up with creative ways that nobody ever thought of applying these data and products to operations. And some of the people on this call are directly responsible for pushing the envelope of both LEO and GEO satellites and making them better for the users. And you know who you are. I know who you are. And more importantly, the program offices know who you are. You're critical to this effort. So let's get started. Okay. So just as an FYI, we are now called the Office of Low Earth Orbiting Observations. And what everybody kind of knew what JPSS was is now part of that office. And NEON is the next generation of low Earth orbiting satellites. So this NEON is the GOES-XO equivalent. Okay, GEO-XO equivalent. Okay, so I wanted to make sure people knew that. Okay, how are we doing right now? So we've had the SUMI NPP launched since October 28, 2021. And now we also have NOAA 20 and NOAA 21. And NOAA 21 is now the afternoon primary satellite, making NOAA 20 the secondary. And NOAA 20 is being rephased to be opposite of NOAA 21, so that people are saying, well, I don't get enough, LEO doesn't give me enough information. It only comes down once a day. Well, it comes down twice a day, and now you have 3 satellites, so that's 6 times a day. And the further north you are, the more of these data become available and products become available. So that move of NOAA 20 so that you can phase and get additional data from NOAA 20 and NOAA 21 should be completed today. I haven't checked to see if it was done, but isn't that interesting? Okay, so where do we stand in the LEO program? So as this image shows, we are we continue to work JPSS 3 and JPSS 4, and when they're finished and tested, they'll be put on the shelf for launch. As that occurs, we are working on the next generation NEON, which includes the quick sounder, which is an ATMS engineering data unit, and that's going to be launched, and it's actually going to be put in early morning orbit. So that will give us another sounder that people have been clamoring about. And then we have Series 1 and Series 2 of NEON, which, much like what GEO-XO is doing, there'll be smaller spacecraft. There'll be fewer instruments on those spacecraft. There'll probably be an imager spacecraft and a sounder spacecraft, and but that's all being worked. Okay, and that takes us out all the way to 2050. Some of you will be retired. Some of you will be somewhere else. Okay, so I wanted to talk about the foundations of why LEO and GEO certainly is doing this same thing. When I helped first write that IOR2 requirements document and talked with all the users, and what do you need, and when do you need it, and where do you need it, we came up with a list of products and data, and I kind of look at that as like a foundation of a house, okay? And each one of the sensors adds to that, like maybe the ABI would be the kitchen, and the viewers would be the living room or whatever. But as you start getting that data, you find out that people, much like yourselves on this phone call, say, can we do something else? Can we use this data in a different way? Have you thought about using this data in this way, which would be really helpful for me? So on the right, you can see kind of the plain house that was built, kind of like SUMI NPP. And then we started making changes as NOAA 20 came along, and NOAA 21. And so it's like renovating the house. Okay, we're renovating the abilities of these spacecraft, because as I said in the introduction that was sent out to all of you, NOAA buys these satellites in bulk. Okay, so we have SUMI NPP 1, 2, 3, and 4, and all of them have the same instruments on them. All of them conceivably have the same data, the same wavelengths, but it's the operational applications that are different. And this is what I wanted to emphasize today. And your voice, the stakeholders' fingerprints, are all over these operational applications. And how do we do that? So I will contend that these program offices, both GEO and LEO, have been working with their users from day one. Well, nowadays we're calling that user engagement, but we were doing user engagement before that terminology became popular. So we do that in a lot of different ways, and it's like a continuation. We get that information, we evaluate it, we deliver it in an operational test environment. Does it work? Is it something that the user thought they needed? And yes, they find it valuable. That's the evaluation. Then we make the change and we make it operational and set it up so the user has those sorts of capabilities all the time. And our interaction is from all kinds of different things. Probably the one that's most visible is conference participation. You can't go to a conference, big or small, without tripping over somebody who's talking about satellites. So we do that, but we also set up workshops. We also what I have done over the years is just look at some of the reports that are out there, some of the articles that people write, and say, oh, I like that. I'm going to contact that person. We have monthly seminars like this. The LEO has a monthly science seminar where the users come in and they talk about what they use and how they use it. So there's all kinds of different ways. And now that we have a user engagement council and we've codified user engagement procedures, we're going to see new ways of engaging the users and asking them, what else can we do for you? So I said, JPSS began user engagement before it was cool. So that's probably a very true statement. Okay, and the way we did it is, following what GeoXO did, is we put out a call for proposal, because when you pay people money to evaluate their bright ideas, you get results. And so by putting money together and sending out call for proposals and identifying ways of using current capabilities and suggestions for new capabilities, and then working with those teams to evaluate those ways, selecting them, funding them, following their progress, helping them out. That's what this slide kind of says. And I'm not going to read it all to you, but it's quite a process, and has been very successful both in the LEO and GEO end of things. So, but we were, and through that we were collaborating, we were talking with the stakeholders, with the users, and something happened. And what happened was we had a flood in Alaska, Galena flood, and Dr. Mitch Goldberg, who was the senior scientist for NPOS at the time, and I were in a conference in Madison when we found out about this in Alaska. And Dr. Goldberg said, well, we're working on some projects for ice on the river ice, and for flooding. Couldn't those two products, which are really in the stage of development, be applied here? And so we found the conference room, we got the Alaska Pacific RFC on the phone, we got some of the developers who were working on those two products on the phone and said, "Can we help?" And the answer was yes. We need all the help we can get. We got people that are leaving their house and they don't know when they're going to be able to get back. And how extensive is this flood? And you know, when is it going to let up? When is the ice jam going to break? So we got together. We sent them the products in the stage that they were in, and the Alaska Pacific people sent it out to the emergency managers dealing with this, and it was a great success. And that's what those initial products look like. You can see Galena, which is right in this crook of the river here. We're just, let me see if I can go back. You can see the extent of the flood at that time and then how it changed. Okay? So we said, well, if that works for Galena along the Yukon River in Alaska, would it work elsewhere in Alaska? Would it work elsewhere in the U.S., the lower 48? Would it work elsewhere in the world? And how can we get the word out as to this sort of thing? So this is kind of the timeline. Again, I'm not going to read it to you, but it started with an ice jam in Alaska, and over the years, it has become a capability that is readily available for anyone in the worldwide, and has been used worldwide to identify where the flood is, how it's changing, and we also along the way said, well, if it works for VIIRS on JPSS, can it work for ABI on GOES? And the answer is yes. And if it works for ABI, can it work for Himawari, Fengyong? Yes. And so we just, along the way, kind of developed these capabilities and make them available to others. And again, you could almost envision thumbprints all along this timeline dealing with users. So it started, I'll go through this very quickly. Here's an example, Madagascar. Yes, it floods in Madagascar, and yes, they have to respond to that. Here's the Philippines. And here's an extensive flooding, because it's obviously at this point, it's not just ice jams, but it's heavy precipitation, it's hurricanes, it's tropical cyclones. So yes, it can be used for a variety of different purposes. So then we established a river ice and flooding initiative. And we said, gosh, that worked out pretty well. Where else can we help? And so over time, one initiative became 13 initiatives as various call for proposals and funding opportunities came along. And I'm just going to go through another initiative real quick, but I can tell you each one of these has had that sort of collaborative interaction between users, stakeholders, developers, and the success stories are there. So I'm just going to give you a little bit more information. The soundings. Obviously, many of you are familiar with the soundings and why soundings are important. And satellite soundings are really critical. And we have been able to provide those satellite soundings now through 2-band PP, NOAA 20, NOAA 21. And thanks to the support of National Weather Service, we're also going to get the European soundings. We've gotten the European soundings into AWIPS. So And we think that the success of the LEO sounding, satellite sounding capabilities is a real motivator for GEO to put up a sounder and do the same sort of thing. So we're going to see how all that works. And, you know, again, while people say, well, soundings, they only come like twice a day, right? Well, a particular event may actually come on consecutive swaths. So that same satellite may show that event nadir and then a little bit out over the limb as that group of thunderstorms kind of move and grow and change in size. So don't just say, oh, well, we can't use LEO's satellites for that purpose because. Well, you'd be surprised what you can use them for, and a lot of you have helped define that. Okay, and one of the things I wanted to highlight, the annual HWT, used to be called the Spring Experiment. We brought the satellite soundings into that environment, and it may have been 6 years that we have been part of that environment, and have gotten feedback from the forecasters on what can be done. So this is a kind of a formal way of interacting, engaging the users, and getting that feedback. And then these are some of the comments that if you have a chance, you can read kind of later. But and I've been through these spring experiments since we started them. And the first year was, can we even get it to where it needs to go? And can the forecasters even find it consistently every day? And then how can we change it? How can we make sure that, so we went from a truly vertical, like a sounding, a vertical temperature and humidity, to a plane, so that you can look at between 800 and 700 millibars instead of across the way. So horizontal slices. So that was directly from the feedback we got from the forecasters in the spring experiments. So I just to go quickly through this, could we make the data available? Could we test it in a pre-convective environment? There was problems with the data in the boundary layers, and finally we were able to work around that. Then we wanted to add other sources of satellite soundings. And then there's your horizontal layers. And we've always emphasized the soundings in a pre-convective environment. It shows the stability. It shows where area of potential severe weather could be. So where else could these soundings be of value? So we've looked at winter, we looked at pyro CBs, we looked at other areas, and then some of that has come into the AWIPS for you guys to look at. Okay, so I just want to give an example of severe weather, severe convective winds. Scott Lindstrom actually put this blog together, and you can see what the satellite soundings look like and the weather that's kind of underneath it. And those thermodynamic fields, the areas of instability, kind of just jump out at you. Okay. Okay, here's some pyro CB work that our Navy partners have been undertaking. Anyone who's an IMET knows that pyro CBs are a big deal, and where the changing air masses in some of these regions where the fires are taking place, how can we capture that as the heat source of the fire helps build these pyro CBs? So we've been working on that. So what have we done to kind of move further down the path? Well, the first thing is that we put together a user engagement program with a plan. We've hired, some of you may know, Kat Hawley has been hired as the government lead for LEO user engagement efforts. We've continued to hold satellite tabletop discussions at the AMS. I don't know if some of you may have participated in Baltimore. And then we've also, as we're coming towards the end of this latest call for proposals, funding opportunities, we had a big review of the programs in February, 16, 17 February, and looking to determine what, who, and what projects are going to be funded in the future. We're looking, we have, with the GEO folks, we have proposed a user engagement event at the NWA Satellite Workshop in September. Just as an FYI, we don't have a plan for a new call for proposals. We're going to work within the existing projects and other bright ideas, and then we're going to fund those programs, and then we'll see about the future of a CFP in the future. So we're kind of doing it on an ad hoc basis. And at that point, we're going to look at what I didn't quite explain is this initiative approach has, every time there's a call for proposals, it's been changed a little bit. Sometimes a initiative will disappear, or a new one will come into being, or it'll be renamed. So every time we come to these big decision points, we look at the initiatives, we work with the stakeholders, we work with the developers, and we rearrange the program to kind of meet the needs of 2024, not necessarily 2014. So let's see. I think I have, yeah. This is kind of motherhood and apple pie. You guys expect us to continue to support you, and we are committed to doing that. We want to do things better and make it more useful, and your feedback, your input is critical to that. If you want to find out, gosh, how are people using it? This is the annual Science Digest we just got out for AMS. It's online. Some of you will recognize yourselves in these articles, but if you get a chance, they're well-written articles that provide information on the operational value of satellite capabilities. I consider them a key resource to answer questions. So what? So what? We're going to look at the future. We call it NEON. So who's using it? Why are they using it? Is it of value? You know, what can be done? So this is a start to communicate that. And we've had Science Digest going all the way back to 2014. So I think they're a good resource, just as you are. And I think that's the last slide. So I'll turn it over for questions that anyone might have.
Okay, hey, well, this is Chris White, and Bill, I want to say thanks a lot for that great presentation. And, you know, I don't just say that, you know, flippantly. You know, I really think this presentation exemplifies the importance of user engagement, which does help to drive research and innovation. And I know you've been a big advocate for the R2O2R process for some time, Bill, and I think that shines through in this presentation. I know I've been a part of that, and you and I have interacted for some years in the proving grounds. But I really like the specific examples of these efforts, and I think this really speaks very well to the whole R2O2R process. So thanks very much. So let me just say, we do encourage people to stay on the line if you can, if your workflow permits, for following discussion and Q&A. especially field forecast offices and regional headquarters folks as well. If you're able to stay on, who knows, maybe have some questions for some of you in here. We'll see. And also at the conclusion of the presentation, Emily Maddox will post the link to the SBC presenter facilitator form. And also, if you actually are interested in presenting or facilitating a future satellite book club talk, please fill out a short form, which will be posted as well, and I believe by Emily. I think maybe she just did. Also just to mention, here in a week from today, so that's next Thursday, April 11th at noon Eastern Time, Dr. Jason Apke, who's a research scientist with CIRA, he will be discussing Octane, optical flow products, and demonstrations at the 2023 Hazardous Weather Testbed. And so that one will be very interesting. Who knows, some of you on the call may have been a part of that in the HWT testbeds, last year. So I'm going to try to attend that one as well. And also, we would like to encourage you to contact the TowerS team, and that's Kashad Bowman, Emily Maddox, for questions about the Satellite Book Club or for configuration of satellite products. I would mention, the TowerS channel there in the Slack chat, in the NWS chat there. There's frequently conversations in there about issues, and they're pretty quick to respond to all that. Let me just go ahead and get started. So, Bill, the R2O, 2R aspects of the programs that you've been involved with have been instrumental to their success. I know some time ago you reached out, to me about the NewCaps data suite and applications and engagement with users, and encouraged me to do something about that. And I think that was you and Rebecca Esmaili. And so then I think myself and Chauncey Schultz, who's the soup in Bismarck, I think we tried our best to kind of facilitate a users applications group on that. And always had wonderful contributions to that from people like Scott Lindstrom, who I think is on the call here too. So, and you showed one of those during your presentation. That's great. So you did mention a little bit about part of your career, you were involved with National Weather Service. And can you expound on that a little bit? And I'm curious if that, if that really helped spur a lot of the R2O, O2R engagement and thoughts about that, or were you kind of already a visionary here?
Okay. So can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Are you? Okay. Okay, very good. So I am a meteorologist. Maybe I should have said that right off the bat. And I did have a chance to go over to National Weather Service and to work with the staff, including the director, on all things satellite. So at that point, I was on the end of explaining why billions of dollars should be spent on GEO and LEO satellites, okay, and what the value is and why it was important. So I really I learned a lot over there, knowing that sometimes the language the military uses isn't quite the same as the language that NOAA uses, and some of the motivators there, but are different. So, but what it reinforced was, look at, there are people, and I was one of those people. Grand Forks, North Dakota was my first duty assignment, okay? And who just are desperate for that satellite, that data, whether it's satellite or not. And if you can get me that data, I'm going to use it. And when I start using it, I'm going to feed back to you what's good and where are the warts. And so my days at National Weather Service was kind of spent documenting that, encouraging people to look at things, evaluate things, and then work with the program offices to keep on track so that we can deliver what was really needed. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting to hear that. Yeah, you're a researcher who's JPSS, you went to Weather Service, and then, if I got this right, and then you went back to JPSS, and so, you kind of stepped a foot to some extent in the operational world, and I think got a taste for, what is needed, and maybe how do we go about finding out what is needed, and that sort of thing. So,
and being able to communicate that, that's
right.
what's really critical.
Yes, right. I do say I did love the engagement users chart you had. I'll just say that's something kind of similar to what we have, at NASA Sport. But I did like that, and that you've got this sort of paradigm that you follow, and I thought that chart was wonderful. So with regards to evaluating, user impact and determining needs, where you are now in this position, is this, you mentioned conferences and that sort of thing. Is this largely done there and through test beds like the hazardous weather test bed, or is there other sorts of user engagements planned, like some sorts of assessments with, some specific defined offices and that sort of thing in the future?
Well, I'd like to call out 3 people: Scott Lindstrom, William Straka, and Gerald Torres, who go out and they're not just solely LEO people, but they go out and they visit these offices. They go out and they talk with them, and some of them just geographically visit some offices more than others. But we do have we being the LEO and GEO have an opportunity to visit various offices in various regions. And in fact, we're working with Jessica Cherry. I saw her on earlier. I don't know if she still is, but she is establishing a conference, a workshop in Alaska, and bringing users together there. So that's something that she feels is necessary as as part of NOAA in Alaska. And we will participate, and we'll go up there, and we will brief, and we will visit, and so we're out there all the time trying to listen to the concerns that are being expressed and engage with the users, and in some cases trying to help them. Say, I was in Boise, Idaho one time with the IMETs, and I said, did you know that these capabilities were on your AWIPs? And a sad number of them didn't. And so I pulled it up. I pulled their AWIPs up on the screen and showed them. You click here, you click here, you click here, and there it is right there. And people were like, oh, well, I didn't know that. So sometimes it's just training. Sometimes it's evaluating it in an operational environment, a National Weather Service operational environment, something like the HWT, that really reveals the value of these capabilities. Or in some cases, you know what? It's not doing what we thought it was doing. Maybe it's not as valuable as we thought it was.
Sure. Yeah. That can happen. I did just want to say that, and yeah, you mentioned Jessica Cherry. She did have something in the chat here. Well, first she said great overview, and then yeah, she did mention this planned LEO GEO SPC workshop for September in Anchorage. So that could be very interesting, and included her email in there. So, so thanks for that, Jessica. And then, actually, while I'm looking at this here, since we are getting a little low on time, Michael Jamalkowski, if you're there, you can speak up if you want to make some verbal comments.
Yeah, can you hear me, Chris?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. This is Mike Jamalkowski. I'm also known as Jammer. I work for the Aerospace Corporation now, but Bill and I have similar backgrounds in that we both had long Air Force weather careers, and we both worked MPOS and JPSS programs. And Bill, this was a great presentation. As always, you're so good at getting information out to people, and thank you for this. And I got 2 things. One is a historical fact. Back in the NPOS program, originally NPP was not what we know now. It was originally the NPOS preparatory project, and it was meant to put some sensors on a NOAA polar orbiter bus to test them out for the NPOS program. But as you know, the NPOS program went over cost and also in time. And so MPP became a separate project, and but was successful on its own. The other thing was, you mentioned Kat Hawley. She just left the job as the GeoXO user engagement person back in the end of January, early February, and went to LEO. And the person who replaced her at GeoXO is Andy Lotto, who I think was the moderator in last week's Satellite Book Club. Anyway, so Andy's doing a good job there. We're working with him on user engagement to do some other studies. And so just wanted to pass those along. Good job, Bill. Thanks. And thank you, Chris.
Yeah, and I'll just follow up.
Oh, no,
I hope I highlighted not only the collaboration between the developers and the stakeholders / users, but also the collaboration between the various satellite programs, whether it's GEO, GOES-R, GeoXO, and LEO, but also within the international community, who obviously Japan continues to provide the answer data for all of us, and that's really critical. So there's just so much opportunity to engage into. When I go to some of these conferences, especially the Europeans, I'm like, really? They're using LEO capabilities in that way? But you have Finland, you have Sweden, you have Norway, you have people, Alaska level people up there that are getting the same data that our Alaska folks are and using it in really creative ways. And you don't even know about it until you get out there and start talking to folks.
Right. And I will just add real quick, as far as the Alaska folks, we do have a wonderful R2O O2R person up there. I see on the call, Aaron Jacobs up there in the Juneau office. So hey, Aaron,
Hey, Chris, thanks for reaching out.
give you a shout out.
Phil,
So by
Phil,
my
I
clock,
do
I
got a
guess we've run
question.
a little bit over. So we.
Oh, go ahead, Aaron. I think you had one question.
Yeah, I was just something about one of the programs with Neon, or I guess it's the LEO's program, was the Pathfinder. Do you have any information about when that's going to be going up, or is that just off topic here?
Well, we have the Quick Sounder, and I can certainly, the Quick Sounder, I can certainly get that out to you. It's you have these units available, and you're like, what if I just take it and make it space worthy and launch it? Would it be of value? And the answer is yes. I mean, you don't have both CRIS and ATMS, but if you put ATMS in an orbit, it's going to be of value. And then so that's the initial part of Neon, and then the second part is the next generation LEO, which is we're behind GEO in a sense that they run out of spacecraft before we do. So that's why GeoXO is pushing so hard, is because they run out of spacecraft. We still have 2 that are going to be on the on the shelf waiting to be launched. So I can get those dates. I don't have them right now, right handy, but I can. If I did put that one slide together, but I can go to any level of detail you'd like to go.
That's great.
Just ask me a
Thanks,
question.
Bill.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, thanks a lot for the question, Aaron. I was actually that was one of my questions I was going to ask as well. Looks like Daniel, I'm not sure if I pronounced the last name right. Coaches says Quick Sounder target launch in second quarter fiscal year 26. So hopefully here in a couple of years. So I guess I do need to go ahead and wrap this up and turn this back over to Jordan for final comments. And thanks very much, Bill, and thanks everyone.
Very good.
All right, folks.
Lots of fun.
Thank you so much, Bill. Thank you so much, Chris. And thanks to all of you that were part of that discussion. I'm sure if you have any other questions about the LEO program, as I know some of you do, Bill Sjoberg is always responsive on email. And so feel free to shoot him a note. Satellite Book Club is going to continue next week, Thursday, April 11th. Dr. Jason Apke is going to discuss Octane optical flow products and demonstrations at the 2023 Hazardous Weather Test Bed. In the meantime, if you have any questions for the Tower S team, please reach out to Kashad or Emily via email or find us on the NWS internal Slack workspace, Tower-S channel. Until next week, I really appreciate all of your attendance today. Thanks so much again to all of you for being here, our presenter, facilitator, and for those of you who are going to be under totality of eclipse, enjoy that too. Until next week, take care, everybody. Thank you so much.